Welcome. This short guide to renegotiating a commercial lease during a financial crisis is done in partnership with TruLegal and Elevate Hennepin, a business support initiative from Hennepin County. Please welcome our presenter, Kwame Osafo-Addo from TruLegal. Hi, Kwame.
Hi, thanks for having me. So, and to every restaurant owner watching this right now, maybe you're squeezing in this between lunch and service prep. I'm glad you took a few minutes. Like Francis said, I'm Kwame. I'm a business lawyer with TruLegal here in the Twin Cities. And the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through a practical way to renegotiate your commercial lease during a financial crisis with one goal: preserve your cash flow, stay open, and ideally at the end, document a deal that you can actually live with. And just to be clear, this is just general information, not legal advice. In the real world, your lease and your facts would control your situation. So again, this is just general advice and not legal advice. Okay, so here's the reality for restaurants. Your revenue is variable, but your lease is usually fixed. You can have a strong week and then a soft week back to back. Foot traffic drops, catering slows, costs rise, and all of a sudden rent isn't just another line item, it becomes the line item. Now, at this point, the landlord is making a decision. It's a risk decision. Do they keep a paying tenant or face vacancy and releasing costs? Now, vacancy is not theoretical. It's time, it's expense, and it's uncertainty. And so the question isn't how do I convince my landlord to feel sorry for me at this time? The question is how do I make it rational for my landlord to work with me? And the answer is to show them what the numbers are, is to propose a temporary structure, and then drive towards an amendment with clear terms, a clear timeline, and clear repayment so that there's no confusion later on. And so the arc is simple. What you do is that you need to reach out early, even before you miss the rent. You want to offer options, and then you want to put those options in writing. Again, this is general information, not legal advice. And your lease language and your specific facts would always control. So with the first approach, approach number one, this is usually your strongest move. You need to approach before you miss your first payment. Once you're late, the tone always changes. It becomes default language. There's, talk of late fees. You lose the leverage that you had, and it's harder for everyone to stay constructive. So request a meeting early and lead with a data pack. And when I say a data pack, what I mean is approach the landlord with at least your last 3 months of sales, show them what your cash on hand is, and what your 60 to 90-day forecast looks like. When you approach like this, you're not trying to win an argument, you're trying to establish credibility. You're saying, here's what changed, here's what we're doing to stabilize, and here's what we can responsibly do right now. And don't be vague about stabilize. Mention what you're actually doing in the business, like maybe tighten labor or pushing higher margin items, maybe renegotiating with your vendors, leaning into delivery, trimming hours, whatever is real for you. Talking to your landlord about these steps shows that you are managing, you're just not drifting. Then finally make a temporary ask with a review date. Usually tell them, let's make these changes for say 60 or 90 days, after which, we can talk again about where I'm at and, what we need to do to make this work for both parties. That's how you keep a conversation in the zone of solutions. This talks about your second approach. It's where you stop asking for help and you start proposing a deal. So at this point, you have to pick one of these options that works best for you. You can either ask for a rent deferral, where you just stop making payments and then you pay later on. This is usually solid when you expect the business to rebound and you can catch up. But only if you write a repayment schedule. So, if you decide that you want 3 months off, then, you have to let the landlord know that you're going to pay those 3 months a little bit at the end of your term. It has to be something that is workable for your landlord. You couldn't suggest, say, 2 years or 3 years of going without any rent. So it has to be something that's workable, but make sure that's something that's realistic, and then make sure that during that time, you negotiate so they are not paying any late fees or interest during that period. The landlord wants this to work for both parties, and so this is a good time to try and show them why this will work for both parties. The second option would be just to ask for a temporary rent reduction. You pay less for a defined period. This is when you usually have like a severe short-term shock. Again, you need to give them a clear end date when you want the term reduction for, the temporary reduction for. The last option is the percentage rent. This is where you ask the landlord for a percentage rent reduction temporarily. So when rent becomes volatile for some people, your rent, if you own a restaurant, sometimes your rent escalates after, say, 3 years. If you're going through something like that, this is a good time to talk to your landlord about maybe getting a percentage decrease, or with certain restaurants, you don't only pay a base rent, you also pay a percentage of the gross sales. Well, since your gross sales are down, say you were paying 5%, you could potentially ask for 2% to make things a little bit easier for you while you're going through this crisis. And I had an illustrative example here where, with restaurants, one thing you have to think about is the CAM and the triple, with triple net leases, you have to think about the other costs that you pay apart from your base rent. And so if you have a triple net lease, or if you're paying for CAM, which is, the overhead costs for the maintenance of the whole property, your percentage share, you would want to also talk to your landlord about those costs to see if you can get some kind of reprieve on those whilst you're going through this crisis. Finally, this is where you get to a yes. You remember this, what landlords want. Landlords want certainty. They want a tenant who stays, and they want to see a path to repayment. So offer things that create stability. You could ask to extend the term of your loan, or sometimes, you have a renewal coming up. You could potentially lock in the renewal if that works for you. Again, these are just ideas. This is not legal advice. These are just some of the options that you may have when you approach your landlord to try and negotiate the terms of your lease. You could offer to provide weekly and monthly sales reports, and during the relief period, this creates certainty for the landlord, because then they know, what's actually going on with the business, and whether you would have the ability to pay what you promised that you're going to pay. Now, always remember that the landlord typically has a mortgage they need to pay on the other end of things. And so it's very important that you're upfront with them as they budget to pay their mortgages. You could ask for shorter cure periods for defaults, future defaults. So sometimes you may have like a 60-day deadline to do something. You could say, hey, why don't we reduce it to 30 days instead of 60 days while we go through this? Some landlords will go for that. Now, this is something you need to be very careful about, and is a personal guarantee adjustment. With some commercial leases, they come with personal guarantees, others don't. Sometimes in situations like this, tenants are able to negotiate a short-term personal guarantee with a landlord, which gives the landlord more confidence that if something were to happen during this period. So this is a situation where there isn't a personal guarantee in place. Offering to give the landlord a personal guarantee, say for 6 months or for a year, gives the landlord assurance that if anything were to happen during this period, you personally guarantee this, and that makes it maybe a little bit easier for them to keep you or reduce the rents based on what you propose, because now that they actually have someone with a personal guarantee. Another thing you could do is ask for them to allow marketing and signage improvements. So sometimes the property may not allow marketing or signage to the property, and sometimes this may be the time to ask. The landlord may be more willing to have you do those things. And for the landlord, what do they get? They get predictable path to repayments. They get a paying tenant. If you do offer them your records, they know they have a visibility into your sales performance. That offers them confidence. And then they also have a signed amendment, so that if anything were to happen, they could enforce the lease. So again, for restaurant owners, anytime you are in a financial crisis, remember, review your lease, look for your, what's my rent? Do I have additional rents like CAM, or, is this a triple net lease? What does the lease say about the default terms, or, what late fees are? What are the notice requirements? Any force majeure clauses in your lease? So, for example, certain leases would excuse you if there was COVID. And so does your lease allow you to do something like that? What kind of access does it give the landlord? Is there abatements of rent if there is if you're going through a crisis? Do you have a personal guarantee? How much is your security deposit? You want to check these things in your current lease. And then build. If before you approach your landlord, approach them with your last 3 months of sales and the trend and the cash that you have on hand, and maybe show them what your burn rate is. And then have 60 to 90-day forecast, best base, worst case scenarios for your tenants and your preferred relief structure. This shows the landlord that you're very serious about fixing the problem, addressing the problem. And then finally, once you have all this, you can send them a one-page proposal, offer them this proposal, and then tell them, let's agree to, after these changes, let's agree to say maybe meet in the next 90 days to see what's going on. But the most important thing about all this is make sure that any changes are put in writing as an amendment to your current lease and signed by both parties. So in conclusion, this is a simple 3-step playbook. Make sure you communicate early with your numbers, offer the structure, offer your landlord a structured relief plan, and finally trade value and sign an amendment. So this is what I have. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kwame, and thank you, TruLegal, for your insight and guidance. Please visit Elevate Hennepin for access to vetted resources, no-cost one-on-one advising, a series of no-cost cohort programming, and business navigators to help guide your next step. Join us at elevatehennepin.org. Thank you.